It was nearly 2 a.m. at St. Helena's Children's Hospital, the kind of hour when the world seems to hold its breath. Most of the floor lights were dimmed to a soft amber glow, casting long shadows through the quiet halls. Nurses walked in, hushed steps. Machines hummed softly, and the occasional beep of a monitor punctuated the silence like a whisper. Nurse Eliza Morgan sat alone at the security desk, half watching the flickering monitors. She sipped lukewarm coffee and flipped through a chart. That's when she saw it, on camera 4, the west entrance. A blur moved through the frame, just a flash of motion. She leaned in, frowning. Rewound. Paused. Her hand froze mid-air. A dog, covered in mud, matted fur streaked with old scars, and something wild and weathered in its eyes. But what stunned her more was how it got inside. The door hadn't opened, not once. There was no alert, no sensor triggered, no sign of a broken lock, yet the dog was inside the hospital. "Eliza to security," she called into the radio, already standing. "We've got an intruder, not a person, an animal. I don't know how, but it's in the building." Somewhere deep in the hospital, paws tapped rhythmically against the tile floors. The dog moved with unsettling precision. It didn't sniff or pause like a lost pet. It navigated corners and hallways like it knew them, like it had been here before, in another life. Staff who caught glimpses of it tried to corner it, but it slipped past them, dodging with sharp turns and swift feet, almost as if it were anticipating their moves. "Where the hell is it going?" muttered Marcus, the night security guard, as he watched the cameras. No pattern, no logic. And yet the dog continued forward, determined, focused. When it passed the pediatric burn unit, it ignored the open doors. When it came near the NICU, it turned away. Then it stopped. Room 309. Inside, a little girl lay motionless on the bed. Her name was Olivia Caldwell, just 6 years old. She had been in a coma for 3 months, the result of a drunk driver who ran a red light on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Her father had died on impact. Olivia had been unresponsive ever since. The dog nosed open the door, monitors beeped steadily beside her bed. A small teddy bear sat tucked under her arm, untouched since the day she arrived. The dog climbed onto the foot of the hospital bed slowly, carefully. Its fur dripped slightly from the rain outside. It crept forward until it was by her side. Then, with a strange grace, it lifted its paw and placed it gently on her chest. It stayed like that for a full minute. Then it curled beside her, resting, its head near her hand. It did not move again. By the time Eliza and the others arrived at room 309, expecting chaos, they found peace. The dog didn't growl, didn't bark, just lay there, eyes half closed as if guarding a sacred space. A few nurses raised their phones, unsure if they were witnessing something dangerous, or something sacred. "She's been unresponsive, for months," whispered one nurse. Eliza didn't speak. She was staring at the heart monitor. The rhythm hadn't changed, but something about the room felt different. Warmer. Moments later, the door creaked open again. Grace Caldwell, Olivia's mother, stepped in, weary and pale from weeks of sleepless nights. Her eyes went instantly to the bed and froze. What is that?" "We don't know," Eliza said quietly. "It just showed up." Grace stepped closer, her hand instinctively covering her mouth. The dog lifted its head and met her. Its eyes were striking, a strange amber hue almost too intelligent. Then Grace dropped to her knees beside the bed and whispered, "Thank you for coming." None of them could explain why she said it. That night, against all hospital protocol, they allowed the dog to stay. Grace sat in the chair beside Olivia, one hand gently stroking her daughter's hair, the other resting on the dog's back. The soya fur was coarse and tangled. There were faded scars, long ones, old ones, and yet something about the dog felt safe. "I've prayed every night for a sign," she murmured. "Anything, just to know she's still in there." The dog didn't move. Later, a young doctor stopped in, Dr. Meyer. He scanned Olivia's chart and shook his head. "No changes," he murmured. "The dog's not hurting anything, but let's keep an eye out. We'll call animal control in the morning." As the staff filed out, The dog opened one eye and watched them all go. Just before dawn, something strange happened. Grace had drifted, off in the chair, curled in an awkward position. The machines were humming steadily as always. Then a sharp beep pierced the silence. A spike on the monitor. Olivia's heart rate jumped. Not dangerously, but a clear, measurable change. Then her fingers twitched, barely, but it was real. Eliza, who was checking vitals at the nurse's station, ran in. She saw the dog lift its head, ears pricking up. I think she just moved, Grace said, breathless. I saw it too, Eliza whispered. I'll get Dr. Meyer. But before she could leave the room, Grace gasped again. The dog's eyes, those golden, intelligent eyes, glowed, just for a second. A faint, unnatural glimmer pulsed from within, as though a candle had been lit behind them. Then it faded. Eliza blinked rapidly. Did you see that? I did, Grace whispered. I swear I did. You're probably overtired, Dr. Meyer said when he arrived, trying to soothe them. It's common. Micro-movements happen in coma patients. The brain misfires. But the monitor, it corrected itself, could have been a glitch, and the eyes, well, dogs' eyes catch light weird sometimes. They didn't believe him, but they couldn't explain it either. The next morning, the dog was gone. No one saw it leave. No security footage showed it exiting, just as none had shown it entering. The doors were still locked. Cameras showed nothing, but empty halls. It had vanished like smoke. Grace awoke in a panic when she noticed the bed was empty beside Olivia. Eliza, where is he? Where's the dog? No one knew. They searched the floor, the entire hospital, nothing, but that wasn't the only mystery. Olivia's vitals were different. Her brain scan showed subtle neurological shifts, minor but noticeable. Her heartbeat was stronger. Her oxygen levels, more consistent. Dr. Meyer stared at the chart for a long time. It's probably just a coincidence, he muttered. But Eliza looked at him and said, You don't believe that. He didn't respond. That night, Grace sat, alone in room 309, staring at the spot where the dog had lain. The blankets still had bits of dried mud. She whispered to her daughter, You felt him too, didn't you? A single tear slid down her cheek. Outside the hospital, a storm was coming. The wind howled through the streets, rain beginning to fall in thick sheets. In the distance, somewhere deep in the city, a dog howled. Not with pain, but with purpose, and... Back in room 309, Olivia's fingers twitched again, but this time they didn't stop. Security didn't sleep after the break-in. They combed through every second of camera footage, every corner of digital memory. What they found was nothing. The dog wasn't on any footage entering the hospital. It wasn't seen leaving either. It simply appeared. The only images were from inside, the dog walking calmly through the sterile corridors, pausing at room 309, then vanishing as though the building had swallowed it whole. No digital trail, no access point, not even motion. Triggers, one tech muttered, eyes red from lack of sleep. Maybe someone snuck it in, a nurse offered weakly, but the timestamps didn't lie. The footage before and after room 309 showed locked doors, no interruptions, no tampering. More confusing still was Olivia's EEG scan. Subtle brain activity anomalies had begun to show. Nothing dramatic, but they weren't meaningless either. A new pattern had emerged. It wasn't random. It was structured, organized like a language no one could understand. Have you seen this before? Dr. Meyer asked the hospital neurologist. No, she said, tracing the waveforms. It's like her mind is waking up before her body. He leaned in. Or someone's waking it for her. It happened again. Exactly 7 nights later, just after 3 a.m. The hospital was quiet, but Grace was wide awake, sitting beside her daughter's bed. She hadn't left the hospital in days, not after what happened, not after the dog changed everything. She felt it before she saw it, a shift in the air. A strange pressure, like something was approaching that didn't belong to this world. Then came the soft click of claws on tile. Grace turned slowly, and there he was, the dog, mud-streaked, scarred, eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. He walked past the nursing station unnoticed, heading straight for room 309. But this time, Grace was ready. She opened the door gently and knelt down as he approached. "You came back," she whispered. The dog looked up at her, his gaze piercing, almost human. He stepped inside and leapt onto the bed like before, paw on Olivia's chest, head near her hand. And then it happened again. Olivia's eyelids fluttered. "Olivia!" Grace breathed, heart racing. "Sweetheart, can you hear me?" The girl didn't respond, but her fingers moved, twice. The monitors spiked, nurses rushed in. "Her vitals, look!" She's responding to stimuli. But as chaos began, the dog slipped away. Just like last time, no one saw where he went. By the time security reviewed the footage, it was the same puzzle. The dog appeared inside and then vanished without a trace. The staff began whispering. The children's ward called him the angel dog, but Grace knew this was no ordinary animal. This was something else. Desperate for answers, Grace did what most modern mothers do when faced with the unexplained. She went online, she posted photos, descriptions, video snippets from inside the room. She told the story without exaggeration. "A dog broke into a locked hospital and laid beside my comatose daughter, twice. Each time she responded. The doctors are baffled. I'm not asking for attention. I'm asking if anyone recognizes him." Within hours, the post was viral. Headlines followed: "Mysterious dog-healing coma girl, ghost dog or guardian angel, no collar, no past, only miracles." And then came the message that stopped her cold. "That dog looks like Echo, a military K9. He died 2 years ago, or so we thought." 2 days later, a man appeared in the hospital lobby. He was tall, weathered, early 40s, with a limp in his left leg and eyes that had seen too much. He wore an old army field jacket and carried a tattered photo in one hand. "I'm looking for Grace Caldwell," he said. Grace met him in the hallway. "You're the one who sent the message?" He nodded. "Name's Daniel Rourke. I was Echo's handler." Her breath caught. Daniel handed her the photo. It showed the same dog, younger but unmistakable. Those same glowing amber eyes, that proud posture. He stood beside a Humvee. Daniel crouched beside him, grinning. "We served together in Kandahar, Fallujah, a dozen other places I'm not allowed to mention," Daniel said. "Echo wasn't just any K9. He was part of a classified project. Experimental stuff. Advanced intelligence, neural empathy. Designed to detect trauma victims during battle. Not just physical trauma, emotional too." Grace blinked. He could sense emotions? Not just sense. He could connect, Daniel said. "We were trying to create a new kind of battlefield medic, one that could heal," she stared. "You're telling me this dog was trained to feel? To understand pain," he said, "and relieve it when possible." Daniel sat by Olivia's bedside for a long time that evening. He didn't speak for a while. Then he said softly, "We were ambushed, a bombing run. Echo saved my life, took the hit for me. We thought he died in the explosion. I never saw him again." "But he didn't die?" Grace asked. "I don't know," Daniel said. "No body was ever recovered. They told me to let it go, said he was gone." He looked up. "But if that's him, if that's really Echo, then he's not just alive. He's seeking something." Grace nodded. "Olivia." Daniel nodded slowly. "He must have sensed her. Pain. The emotional kind. That's what he was trained to find," Grace whispered. "You think he's trying to heal her?" "I think," Daniel said, "he's doing more than that. I think he's connecting with her mind." Later that night, Dr. Meyer summoned Grace urgently. "You need to see this," he said, pointing to the latest EEG scan. The patterns had changed again, and now they were unmistakably conscious. Olivia's brain wasn't just reacting, it was processing. "Her mind is active," the neurologist said. "She's not just dreaming, she's forming thoughts, real ones." "Can you tell what she's dreaming about?" "We've done a light scan analysis," he said. "We can't see images, but we've detected cognitive spikes associated with facial recognition and sensory memory." He paused. "Whoever she's dreaming about, she knows them." The next day, Grace was sitting beside her daughter, holding her hand, when Olivia's fingers twitched again. Then her lips parted. Barely. Softly. She whispered a single word. "Doggy." Grace froze. "Olivia!" The nurse rushed in. Her eyes fluttered, and she said it again. "He's warm." Grace swallowed a sob. "Sweetheart, who?" Olivia smiled faintly. "The dog with the fire eyes." Tears spilled from Grace's eyes as the nurse ran to get Dr. Meyer. Grace could barely whisper. "She's never seen him. Never. Not awake. Not even in photos." But Olivia was already slipping back into stillness, her hand relaxing. Her vitals were steady, but something had changed forever. Outside, the sky was beginning to turn. A heavy wind moved through the city. Lightning flashed in the distance. In an alley 4 blocks away, a shadow shifted behind a dumpster. Echo, scarred, silent, watching, turned his head toward the hospital. He was not finished. Not yet. Grace had never been one to believe in miracles. But after the second visit, the flutter of her daughter's eyes, the rise in her vitals, the dog that disappeared like smoke, she was willing to believe in something. So when a team of neuro researchers at Stanford reached out after seeing her viral post, she said, yes. Yes to experimental imaging. Yes to the unknown. Yes to hope. They set up the equipment in Olivia's room like a scene from a science fiction film. Tubes, screens, sensors that monitored not only brain activity, but real-time neurological visualization. The idea was radical. Project a live feed of her dream state, mapping neural impulses into interpretable shapes and images using a new AI-enhanced interface. Most patients showed clouds of color, patterns, occasionally something symbolic. But not Olivia. When the system booted up, the entire team froze. A corridor appeared, long, dark, endless, like a tunnel through memory. And in the distance, something moved. A dog. The same dog. The one from the photo, from the security footage. He trotted ahead through the shadowy hall, pausing at every branch in the path, as if waiting for someone to follow. And there, just behind him, was a tiny figure. A little girl, barefoot, with tangled hair and a hospital gown that fluttered like paper in the wind. "Is that?" Grace whispered. "That's Olivia," a tech confirmed, stunned. The corridor twisted and changed shape, warping like living memory. At one corner, the lights overhead flickered. A distant screech of tires. Olivia hesitated. A shape appeared at the end of the hallway, something dark, towering, undefined. The crash. The memory she couldn't escape. But the dog stood between her and the shadow, growling. Not with fear, but defiance. "He's guiding." "Her!" one neurologist said in awe. "Through the trauma!" No one spoke for several minutes. Only Grace moved, quietly stepping forward and placing a hand against the monitor, her lips trembling. "He's not just in her dreams," she whispered. "He's inside her." The doctors stopped laughing at Grace after that. They stopped calling it grief-induced hallucination or maternal delusion, because the proof was right there, in EEG spikes that mirrored emotional responses, in visuals pulled from the very core of a child's consciousness. Every time the dog appeared, Olivia's vitals improved. Her oxygen levels steadied, her heart and rate smoothed. Her neural patterns grew more organized, and Grace, she changed too. She started reading to Olivia again, started talking to her like she could hear, laughing about old cartoons, telling stories about her dad, and she started playing a recording. It was an old clip Daniel had given her, just a minute long. A sharp bark, then another, Echo's voice. She played it on loop beside the bed. "Olivia," Grace would whisper, "your friend is here." And always, after the bark, another flicker in the brain activity. "She's responding to him," the lead researcher said, watching a spike on the monitor. "Or maybe," Grace murmured, brushing Olivia's hair back, "he's responding to her." That night, a storm rolled in. Not a quiet one, but a furious, thunderclapping, bone-shaking storm that made the windows rattle and the backup generators hum in nervous anticipation. Grace sat in room 309 like she always did, curled up in the chair with a blanket, and the soft sound of Echo's bark looping gently. Then the temperature dropped, lights dimmed, the recording stopped, and Grace felt it. That shift again, like something crossing into the world from elsewhere. Then the door creaked open. He was there, but he was hurt. Echo limped into the room, soaked and bleeding from a wound on his side. His breathing was ragged, uneven. Rainwater dripped from his fur, pooling onto the tiles. Oh my God! Grace stood, rushing to him. What happened? Echo didn't respond. He stepped slowly toward the bed, dragging his leg, reached Olivia's side, then laid his head gently on her chest. The machines spiked, all of them, beeping, flaring. A deep, resonant growl echoed from Echo's chest, unlike any growl Grace had ever heard. It was low and thunderous, vibrating through. The walls like a tuning fork struck by lightning. The lights flickered, monitors sparked, alarms blared, nurses came running. Then Olivia gasped, her body jerked, her back arched, and her eyes opened. Echo! Olivia screamed as she bolted upright, eyes wide, face soaked in tears and sweat. Grace lunged forward, wrapping her daughter in her arms before the doctors could even process what had happened. "She's awake!" someone shouted. "She's fully awake!" Nurses scrambled, calling codes and stats. But Grace wasn't listening. She was sobbing, laughing, clutching her little girl like she would never let go again. And then Olivia whispered something that silenced the entire room. "He told me it was time to come back." "Who, sweetheart?" Grace asked, brushing hair from her face. Olivia looked straight ahead at the empty spot on the floor. The dog. Echo. Grace froze. So did Daniel, standing in the hallway, tears streaming silently down his face. He stepped forward. "Olivia, how do you know his name?" She blinked. "He told me. I never said it. Not once," Daniel stammered. "He told me everything," Olivia said softly. "He said you used to get scared too, but he stayed with you, didn't he?" Daniel collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Then a nurse rushed in. "There's something you need to see." Outside in the parking lot, right where the emergency ambulance dock stood, they found Echo, or what was left of him. He was lying peacefully in the grass, eyes closed, body untouched by the storm. No wounds, no blood, no signs of trauma. His fur was clean, dry, as if he had simply lain down to sleep. Daniel dropped to his knees beside him, trembling. He came home. Grace stared, tears falling freely. He saved her. The dog was gone, but something about his body. It looked younger, lighter, like a burden had been lifted. A small breeze rustled through the leaves, and somewhere nearby. A bark echoed once, then faded, unforgettable ending 200 words. Weeks passed. Olivia recovered faster than anyone expected. First speech, then movement. Within 2 months, she was walking the hospital garden with a cane and a smile. The hospital board approved a special tribute, a life-sized bronze statue of Echo, placed right outside the pediatric wing, where children passed every day. They called the guardian of room 309. Every kid who walked by reached out to pet his muzzle. Some said he felt warm. Many claimed they dreamt of him. "He told me I was going to be okay," one child whispered to her mother. Another said, "He said not to be afraid." Doctors chalked it up to stories, rumors, a shared fairy tale. But Grace knew better, so did Daniel. Some truths didn't need medical validation, because in a world full of unexplainable pain, sometimes healing comes on 4 legs, wrapped in fur, with eyes that see what others cannot. And sometimes, if you listen closely, you can still hear him, a bark in the wind, a shadow in a dream, a growl in the silence. Final line. Some say he was just a dog, but to Olivia, he was a guide, a guardian, and maybe something more.